Hello and welcome to another episode of Knowledge Enthusiast Reacts, or in this case, Knowledge Enthusiast Comments on. And this time it is History of the Entire World, I guess, by Bill Wurtz. So I already have seen this and I've seen it several times because I really like this video, and I think it's a very good starting point if you want to get into history, if you want to get into the history of the world with all main world events even before humanity. Then this is a very entertaining and educational starting point. It's very oversimplified. Everything is just scratched the surface of, but if you find something you find interesting, you can do research on it and find out more. So yeah, that's a great starting point. To me, I'm Aussies born. I'm 31 years old. I live in Hamburg, Germany. I'm from East Germany. I'm a former history student without degree, and I'm a former video game journalist. And this channel is about learning together. It's not in the first place about sharing my knowledge with you, because as you might already know, I'm not an expert in things, and sometimes I memorize things wrong, sometimes I say things wrong, but if I do so, you will find there the correction. So I do no research before I go into these videos, but after when I'm editing these videos, I do my fair share of research, and if I say something wrong, it's most likely you will find the correction there, or even further information on the topics I'm talking about. As I talked a lot in my recent videos, I will try to talk a little bit less here, which is fine, because as the title suggests, it's the history of the entire world, and there is a lot I can't even comment on because it's way outside my expertise. But yeah, without further ado, let's just start with history of the entire world, I guess, by Bill Wurtz.
Hi, you're on a rock, floating in space. Pretty cool, huh? Some of it's water. Fuck it. Actually, most of it's water. I can't even get from here to there without buying a boat.
I always find it funny. He says without buying a boat, and then he shows an airplane. Just for your interest.
Sad. I'm sad. I miss you.
How did this happen?
A long time ago, actually never, and also now, nothing is nowhere. When? Never. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, this is what he's coming to is the Big Bang Theory, which, as the name suggests, is a theory, but a theory in scientific sense is not a theory as you commonly know it. So when you on the street speak about a theory, it's something you think might be true, but you need to do research, you need to go test and stuff. In the scientific world, the theory is more or less the current state of information. Like it's not really a fact, because in this case, for example, you just can't prove it 100%, because to do that you pretty much had to be there when it happened. But with all the knowledge we have and with all the tests we made, it's pretty much possible that it was so much so that it's almost like a fact. Even though there are a lot of people, and not only religious people, but also other people who will still deny the Big Bang Theory and stuff like that. But yeah.
A long time ago, actually never, and also now, nothing is nowhere. When? Never. Makes sense, right? Like I said, it didn't happen. Nothing was never anywhere. That's why it's been everywhere. It's been so everywhere, you don't need a where. You don't even need a when. That's how every it gets.
I'm not pausing here.
Forget this. I want to be something, go somewhere, do something. I want things to change. I want to invent time and space. And I know it's possible because everything is here and it probably already happened. I just don't know when to start. And that's exactly where it started.
Yeah, so the current state of knowledge is that, which is why it is so hard to even believe this, to even think of this, because the human brain is not able to grasp on the concept of nothingness, because even the things we say are nothing are usually white or black, which is in fact something. So you have to imagine something that is not even white and black, which is impossible for the human brain. And the theory is that out of nothing, which is debatable, the universe started not in a big bang, like the name suggests, but more in a there was no explosion and suddenly there were things. It is way more complicated than that, and I'm not doing it justice here because I don't have even the slightest plan on the whole theory. But if you're interested in this, of course you can do research and maybe get a little glimpse of what actually might have happened.
Here, and it probably already happened. I just don't know when to start. And that's exactly where it started. Oh, I paused it. I think there's a universe now. What's it made of?
Quarks and stuff.
Ah, that's a thing. In a place. Don't like it? Try a new place. At a different time. Try to stick together because the world is going to get bigger and emptier. But it's not empty yet. It's still very full and about 1 jillion degrees. Great news. The quarks are now happily married in groups of 3 called a proton or a neutron. And there's something else flying around too that wants to join in but can't because it's still too... Great news, the protons and neutrons are now happily married to each other. Some of them even doubled up. Great news, the electrons have now joined in. Congratulations, the world is now a bunch of gas in space. But it's getting closer together. And it's getting closer together. And it's getting closer together. It's a star. New shit just got made. Some stars burn out and die. Bigger stars burn out and die with passion and make some brand new, way crazier shit.
Space dust.
Which allows newer, more interesting stars to be made and then die and explode into
Even crazier space dust.
So now stars have cool stuff around them, like rocks, ice, and funny clouds, which can make some very interesting things. Like this ball of flaming rocks, for example. Holy shit, we just got hit with another ball of flaming rocks. And it kind of made a mess, which is now the moon. Whether...
Which, as far as I know, firstly, when this happened, and the moon is believed to be something that was breaking off from what we now call Earth, and at first it wasn't like that round shaped, and it wasn't even as consistent in its orbit around the Earth, which held it more or less back due to gravity and its higher mass. The spheric shapes that Moon and Earth have, that every planet has, is the product of millions and millions of years orbiting each other, and therefore and the spin, of course, and therefore getting its shape. And all these crates you see on the moon are actually most of them are impacts from other asteroids and steroids and other stuff that hit the moon. And as far as I know, it's even so that the moon is drifting, or was drifting away from the Earth, and now it's getting pulled in again, but not like you would imagine, like, yeah, in a few years the moon will crash on the Earth, but it's like the moon is more than 300,000 kilometers away, and it's like 1 centimeter a year or something like that, that it's getting closer. So it will be a long time before it actually would be close enough to be pulled in. And by that point, because it's believed that the sun has around, 1.6 billion years left before it will become a supernova or a red giant beforehand. At that point, this would still not have happened. So,
ball of flaming rocks, and it kind of made a mess, which is now... Weather update, it's raining rocks from outer space. Weather update, those rocks might have had water inside them and now there's hot steam in the sky. Weather update, cooler temperatures today and the floor is no longer lava. Weather update, it's raining. Severe flooding alert, the entire world is now an ocean. Volcano alert.
That's land.
There's life in the ocean. What?
Something's alive in the ocean.
Oh cool, like a plant or an animal? No, a microscopic speck. It lives at the bottom of the ocean and eats chemical soup, which is being served hot and fresh, made from gnarly space ingredients left over from when it was raining rocks or whatever. Oh yeah, and it can do that. It has secret instructions written inside itself telling it how to build another one of itself. So that's pretty nifty, I would say. Tired of living at the bottom of the ocean?
Now you can eat sunlight.
Using a revolutionary technique, you can convert sunlight into food.
Taste the sun.
Side effect, now there's oxygen everywhere and the sky's blue. Then the Earth might have been a snowball for a while, maybe even a couple of times. It's a...
Yeah, like it is believed that the Earth is constantly going from warm periods to cold periods to warm periods to cold periods, which is actually an argument used by some to deny the human-made climate change that we are experiencing now. The problem with that is that, the climate change would happen, and as I said, happens all the time, but the humans and the industrialization have accelerated it, so it's going faster than it would usually do. So yeah, that's that. And the Cambrian Explosion is another term which is misinterpreted today a lot, because it's, again, not as you would picture an explosion, not like boom and suddenly there are living things. It's more, it's also a process over a lot of time. I think it was millions of years that the life forms became complexer. But in the great scheme of things, like the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, it is a very, very sudden occurrence that from no life to single cellular life to multicellular life, which will be the Cambrian Explosion. So
everywhere and the sky's blue. Then the Earth might have been a snowball for a while, maybe even a couple of times. It's a sponge, it's a plant, it's a worm and some other types of weird strange water bugs and strange fish.
It's the Cambrian Explosion.
Wow, that's animals and stuff. But we're still in the ocean. Hey, can we go on land? No. Why? The sun is a deadly laser. Oh, okay.
Not anymore, there's a blanket.
Now the animals can go on land. Come on, animals, let's go on land. Nope, can't walk yet. And there's no food yet, so
So I used to pay 1,000 euros
Okay.
warm, and now I pay 850.
let's skip.
I don't care.
I do not use an ad blocker because I want to support the channels when doing these videos, and so we have to stick with some kind of commercials in between, but I will skip them because as far as I know, as long as you play them until you can skip them, it's fine, and it's not a huge difference, I think.
Go on land. Come on, animals, let's go on land. Nope, can't walk yet. And there's no food yet, so I don't care. Okay, will you learn to walk if there's plants up here? Maybe, said some bugs. And fish.
I like
Okay,
the
so I
sound.
can go on land, but I have to go back in the water to
Have babies.
learn to use an egg.
I was already doing that.
Use a stronger egg. Put water in it. Have a baby on land in an egg. Water is in the egg. Baby in the egg, in the water, in the egg. Works for me.
Bye-bye, ocean.
And now everything's huge, including bugs. Want to see a map of the land? Sure. Oh fuck, now everything's dead. Just kidding, here are the survivors. Keep your eye on this one because it's about to become the dinosaurs. Here's another map of the land. Yeah, it broke apart, don't worry about it, it does that all the time. Here comes a meteor.
And the dinosaurs are gone.
Like I said, it's a very, very oversimplified explanation, which only scratches on the surface. For example, the time period the dinosaurs were on the planet is, if I remember correctly, was about 400 million years, with various stages from the Triassic to the Jurassic and others, and I don't set them in chronological order, I think. And for example, like the Triceratops and the Tyrannosaurus, as far as I know, have lived in completely different times, so they didn't even have contact with each other as depicted in some movies like In the Land Before Time or even Jurassic Park, because some of the dinosaurs in the Jurassic Park are not even from the Jurassic period, and but they are from like the in German we say Kreidezeit. I'm not really sure. I will put it there what it is in English, or they are from the other thing I just said, Triassic. I just will put it there and stop talking now and continue the video.
Don't worry about it, it does that all the time. Here comes a meteor.
And the dinosaurs are gone.
It's mammal time, here come the mammals. Look at those breasts. Now they're gonna dominate the world, and one of them just learned how to grab stuff and walk. No, like walk like that and grab stuff at the same time.
Yeah, as you just could
grab
see,
stuff and walk. No, like walk like that.
This first, so the humanity comes is currently believed to come from Africa, especially some part of modern day Ethiopia, which is called in German it's die Wiege der Menschheit. In English it's let me just check. The cradle of humanity, yes. And it is actually believed that the more or less modern humans, so the first life forms that you can call some kind of human, it's not the modern day Homo sapiens, it's a predecessor of that, but it's believed that humanity as a whole exists for around 4 million years, which is a huge time span and will not make a lot of progress in most of it, and then make rapid progress in the let's say final 30 to 40,000 years to now, or even maybe 100,000 years, but yeah, it's a very long time, but still not as long as like the dinosaurs were on the planet, or the time between the dinosaurs being on the planet and the first human being on the earth.
And grab stuff at the same time and bang rocks together to make pointed rocks, ouch, and set things on fire, youch, and make crazy sounds with their voice, knirsch, which can mean different things.
That's a human person.
And now they're everywhere. Almost.
Ice Age.
What? You can walk over here?
Like you just saw in the scene before, we were at 4 million years ago, and now we're 20,000 years ago. So there is a lot of time in between where nothing nothing happened, because the whole evolution process happened that made humans able to leave Africa, to spread around the world, and to become more or less the kind of humans we know today. Because at that point, from that point onward, there will be not as much evolution as they were in the time before, which is logical because it is only 20,000 years. But it's at this point it's more or less the modern human, the Homo sapiens, which means intelligent humans, I think.
And now they're everywhere. Almost.
Ice Age.
What? You can walk over here? Cool.
Not anymore.
Well, I guess we're stuck here now. Let's review. There's people on the planet. And they're chasing their food. Fuck it. Time to plant some grass. Look at this. I control the food now. Now everyone will want to be my friend and live near me. Let's all build houses, except mine is bigger because I own the food. This is great. I wonder if anyone else is doing this.
And contrary to the belief of some, when the humans settled, it did not improve life conditions at first. On the contrary, it lessens it. I'm not quite sure right now on to why exactly, but it has something to do with less movement, less variety in the food, because before, when you were nomadic, you go from place to place, you have different kinds of diets, and it is believed that the humans lived more healthier at that time, whereas when they settled and were stuck to the local diet, if you want. So if stuck to what they planned, or stuck to the corn, for example, and the local animals, and also when they're in a community, it is easier to get sick, of course, and stuff like that. So it was more or less unhealthier for a time. But as I always say, you win some, you lose some. It's on the other hand, you did not have to chase your food, and you did not as much be killed by your food potentially, which was a problem.
Me. Let's all build houses, except mine is bigger because I own the food. This is great. I wonder if anyone else is doing this. Tired of using rocks for everything? Use metal. It's underground. Better farming was just invented in a sweet dank valley right in between these two rivers, and the animals are helping.
Guess what happens next?
More food, and more people who came to buy the food.
Yeah, all these river valley civilizations that will come up in those time periods. It's actually, water is the source of all living, more or less, and especially sweet water, because as a human person you can't drink salty water because it will dehydrate you and not hydrate you. So it's only natural that you will settle down near those rivers, and the more rivers, the more water there is, the better it is. And the whole Middle East, what we know today as the Middle East, when we think of it, we picture sand and deserts, and it is not like we think of lush farmlands, but the Middle East being like that today is actually the product of these lush farmland. The Middle East was, for most time in modern human history, a very, very sought after region. Everyone wanted to conquer this region, and some even did, like Alexander the Great, like the Persians, and so on, which is not only because of the trade routes to Asia, but because it's the perfect region to do agriculture. It's on the it is believed that there is a ideal I always forget the English word. Let me look up that as well. Wait, it's latitude or altitude? from top to down, it's altitude, isn't it? You know what I mean? But no, there is this perfect zone where the climate is perfect and where the conditions are perfect to do agriculture. And the most perfect spot was more or less the Middle East at that time. But they did too much agriculture, so the soil at some point became not able to produce more agriculture, because it more or less spoiled or something, and then like coastlines shifted, and it got hotter and drier, but at that point, those river valleys were lush farmlands. And what you also need is rivers that you can predict. If you have a river that floods at random times, you can't really do your farming around that, because those plants, if they get too much water, it's not good for them. If they get too little water, it's also not good for them. Which is why, like, rivers like the Nile or Mesopotamia between Euphrates and Tigris were perfect, because all three of those rivers had very predictable flooding patterns. And also, actually, the Babylonians, if I remember correctly, or at least the Mesopotamians, so the people between Euphrates and Tigris, were the first later on to even bend the rivers to their will. So the first ones to do channels and stuff like that, to have a more or less year-around possibility to do their plant their food, do their agriculture, which then this technology then led to make it possible to have prosperous cities in other regions, where you might not have those predictable rivers, but you can do channels now, and with those channels you can do agriculture nonetheless. So yeah, that's that. Let's go back a bit. And Mesopotamia means between rivers, which I think it just
underground. Better farming was just invented in a sweet dank valley right in between these two rivers.
Yeah, between rivers.
And the animals are helping. Guess what happens next? More food and more people who came to buy the food. Now you need people to help make the food and keep track of the sales. And now more food and more people who came to buy the food. Now you need people to help.
This actually here is an example of those channels I was just talking about, with which you made it possible to expand the possible farming land and the possible living space, because not only the plants need the water, but the humans do too.
Make the food and keep track of the sales. And now you need houses for people to live in and people to make the houses. And now there's more people and they invent things, which makes things better. And more people come and there's more farming and more people to make more things for more people. And now there's business, money, writing, laws, power. Society.
More or less.
Coming soon to a dank river valley near you. Meanwhile, out in the middle of nowhere, the horse is probably being tamed. Why is all my metal so lame and lumpy? Tired of using lame, sad metal? Introducing bronze, made with special ingredient tin from the far lands of Tinland. I don't know, my dealer won't tell me where he gets it. Also, guess what? Egypt. Meanwhile, out in the middle of nowhere, they figure...
Yeah, bronze actually was the first time that humans used metal or something else as wood and stones to craft weapons and to craft tools. Before that, they knew of the existence of metals, but they were not really able to melt it, to form it, to do something with it that you actually can properly use. but then bronze came along. Bronze was great. Bronze was a multi-purpose and durable tool. And later on, with the Bronze Age collapse, after that, it was then iron, I think, was the next big thing, which you don't have to put two metals together. You don't have to it is more or less complicated, and especially you need less resources to produce weapons out of iron. But I think you need you need to melt it at a higher melting point. So, as I say, you win some, you lose some. And in the taming or the domestication of horses is probably the most important step on Europe, Asia, and Africa to actually become the superpowers of the world. Because we know we have people in Americas, but the issue is that you have in terms of domestication, there were at like 100 years before, there were only 12 kinds of animals, bigger animals, working animals, that were domesticated in Europe, Asia, and Africa, and only one in America, which was the llama, and that only in South America, which is why South America was more developed than North America. But overall, both Americas were underdeveloped in comparison to Europe, because they were, I think, not even stuck at the Bronze time, but before even that. But I'm not really sure about that. But they were stuck, and they couldn't go above that because they had no animals they could put to work. Whereas in Europe, especially, the horse now was a multi-purpose animal, if you want. So you could ride it to go from here to there even faster than before, and more comfortably, if you want. So you could use it to work. You could use it to lift stuff, and so on and so on and so on. It's no coincidence that we still today use the unit horsepower to compare the power something has with how many horses you would need. Whereas 1 horsepower is like, what, 2, 3, 4 human powers. So it was very, very great for humanity to domesticate the horses.
Dealer won't tell me where he gets it. Also, guess what? Egypt! Meanwhile, out in the middle of nowhere, they figured out how to put wheels on a horse. Now we're getting somewhere. Also, China! And did I mention Indus River Valley civilization? The Middle East is getting more complicated. Maybe because it's in the middle of the East.
And with Egypt, something I always find fascinating in Egypt is when you look at stuff like the pyramids or the Valley of Kings or all those famous sites you can find in Egypt, and the Egyptian culture and history and stuff. Like, imagine someone in Egypt living in around, when Caesar and Cleopatra were around, like more or less around 50 before before Christ. And at that point, the buildings like the pyramids or the Sphinx were already older than time has passed from there to now. So when we go 2,500 years back, that it's more or less nothing compared to the time the pyramids were built compared to that, because the pyramids were built at around 3 to 4,000 years even before that. So some of them are now 6,000 years old. And that's always fascinating, I think, because you have, when we go to like Rome today and we see the Colosseum, which was built in the earliest centuries after Christ, you feel so distant from even those civilizations, and how I always wonder how it must have felt for the Egyptians to see those pyramids, to see the Sphinx if it was not already covered in sand, to see the Valley of Kings and stuff like that, which is even more distant for them than things from around Christ's birth are for us today. So yeah.
The Middle East is getting more complicated, maybe because it's in the middle of the East. Knock knock, or clop clop. It's the people with the horses, and they made an empire, and then everyone else copied their horses. Greeks! Ah look, it must be the Greeks, or a beta version of the Greeks. Let's check in with the Indus River Valley civilization. They're gone. Guess who's not gone? China.
New arrivals in India. Maybe it's those horse people I was talking about, or their cousins or something. And they wrote some hymns and mantras and stuff.
You could make a religion out of this. There's the Bronze Age collapse. Now.
Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, it is still today not known exactly what caused the Bronze Age collapse. It's one of these mysteries of history where something is here at one day and it is gone at the other day. And which does not only refer to the bronze as a material and a tool, but also the whole civilizations that were built around in these bronze tools and weapons, and suddenly they were gone or diminished or stuff like that. So let's continue.
Now the Phoenicians can get down to business.
Also, can we switch to a metal that's a little easier to find? Thanks. Look who came back to Israel. It's the 12 tribes of Israel.
And they believe in God.
Just one, though. He's got like a 10-step program. Here's some huge heads. Must be the Olmecs. The Phoenicians make some colonies. The Greeks copy their idea and make some colonies.
Actually, this is something I just learned recently, if I remember correctly. The whole issue with the Romans and the Jews was that by concept the Jews had had only one God, so it is a monotheistic religion, and to have other gods would be very, very bad for them. But the Romans, on the other hand, were polytheistic, so they had various gods, and the same goes for Christianity, which is one of the reasons why Christians were for a long time even killed and treated badly in those times, was because for the Romans it wouldn't have been an issue if they would just say, okay, it's just one new or other god next to the gods we have, like next to Pluto, next to Jupiter, next to all these Roman gods. Then you can have your Jehovah, or you can have your God, and but the Christians and the Jews were strongly against that because, as I said, they only have one God. They are not allowed to have any gods beside that. And that was the issue there. And the Romans couldn't accept that. Firstly, like in around 300 after Christ, AD, it was changed, and Constantine made Christianity legal, I guess it was. Like I said here, you can read it there then. Yeah.
Some huge heads must be the Olmecs. The Phoenicians make some colonies. The Greeks copy their idea and make some colonies. The Phoenicians made a colony so big it makes colonies. Here comes the Assyrian Empire. Never mind, it's the Babylonian Median.
It's the Persian Empire.
Wow, that's big. And yes, it is. It is the biggest empire the world has seen until that point. But it's not in particular a strong empire in the sense of you have a strong army, you have a strong leader, you have everything's fine. But as you always have with huge empires, you have people from different regions who might not want to live in your empire. So that's one of the reasons why Alexander was able to just overrun the Persian Empire, because it was internally not that stable, like every empire was. Or almost every empire.
Here comes the Assyrian Empire. Never mind, it's the Babylonian Median.
It's the Persian Empire.
Wow, that's big. Ah, the Buddha was just enlightened. Who's the Buddha? This guy who sat under a tree for so long that he figured out how to ignore the fact that we're all dying. You can make a religion out of this. Oops, China just broke, but while it was breaking, Confucius was figuring out how to have good morals. Ah, the Greeks just had the idea of thinking about stuff. And right over here, Alexander just had the idea of conquering the entire Persian Empire.
Yeah, and
had the idea of thinking about stuff. And right over here, Alexander just had the idea of conquering the entire Persian Empire. It's a great idea. He was great. And now he's dead. Hopefully the rest of the gang will be able to share the empire evenly between them. Knock knock, it's Chandragupta. He says, get the hell out of here. Will you get the hell out of here if I give you 500 elephants?
yeah, just it's also something that might be hard to believe today, but within a lifetime, without trains, without cars, without any form of really fast transportations, Alexander the Great conquered not only the Greece or the Egyptians or the Middle East, but he reached India, and as far as I know, he even wanted to go further than that, but then he died. And it's still not really clear why he died. He died very young, so it can be, or it is assumed that he was killed. But it is still unclear if he died because he was sick or if he was poisoned, which is the most prominent theory, I guess. Or if he was just murdered by his generals, who did not want to go further into India, because India now and then was a very rough place, and you have thick jungles, you have not the perfect terrain to wage wars, and after Alexander the Great died, his empire was split between some of his generals, which on paper, if you see it here breaking apart, you think, okay, so that's it for the Alexandrian Empire, but it's not that easy, because those generals still were from Greece, so this was still a huge part in the Hellenistic spread, which would make all the territories that Alexander conquered Greekify. So, like when you see Egypt before the Romans came in, it was a very it was a society that was coined by Hellenism, and the people even spoke Greek. I think I spoke Greek and Egyptian, but Greek was, if I remember correctly, the main language. So in that terms, Alexander did succeed, and his empire did last longer than he lived, even though it was at that point more than one empire, but the idea behind it survived, I think you can say.
Between them. Knock knock, it's Chandragupta. He says get the hell out of here. Will you get the hell out of here if I give you 500 elephants? Okay, thanks, bye.
Time to conquer all of India, or most of India.
But what about this part? That's the Tamil Kings. No one conquers the Tamil Kings. Who are the Tamil Kings?
Merchants probably, and they've got spices.
Who would like to buy the spices? Me, said the Arabians, swiftly buying it and selling it to the rest of the world. Hey, China put itself back together again.
Yeah. Up until this point, you didn't have that much spices in Europe and in the Middle East. Sure, you had your fair share of salt. You had maybe even some other spices you can still find today here, but the spice trade from India and later more or less the whole Southeast Asia was a catalyst for so many world events and for so much trade, and even for one of the main reasons why later on the Middle East would still be the most debated region, because when you control the Middle East, you control the spice trade. And if you control the spice trade, you're not only rich, but you can only also dictate your let's say philosophies and your rules upon those who depend on you, because for some reason spices were something everyone wanted to have, and spices were the reason why the Portuguese sailed around Africa to reach India, and were the reason why one of the reasons why Columbus wanted to go west to find the western route to India, because spices. It was all about the spices and silk, which will be the main reason for the Silk Road, which all came from Asia, especially from India, China, and stuff. And yeah, I don't know, spices were huge. And the same goes for salt. So you might have heard of the Hanseatic League, which was originally founded between Lübeck and Lüneburg, and then Hamburg joined in because it's right in between of them. And Lüneburg was and still is a huge producer of things like salt. And salt at some points was more valuable than even gold. And to protect the salt that was shipped or carted to Lübeck, which is on the coast, which you have here you have Lüneburg, here you have Hamburg, and here you have Lübeck. These carts, these transports would be robbed more often than not, would be taxed highly, and so on and so on. And so they founded the Hanseatic League to have a protection on this route and no taxes between them. So it was cheaper to transport the salt to Lüneburg, and it was also safer. And on these, more or less on the salt, the whole Hanseatic League spread it over most of Northern Europe, and was at one point one of the most powerful companies and political community that you had in Europe. So salt and spices are huge. That was the point I wanted to make.
Buy the spices. Me, said the Arabians, swiftly buying it and selling it to the rest of the world. Hey, China put itself back together again, with good morals as their main philosophy. Actually, they have three main philosophies. Out here, the horse nomads run wild and free, and they would like to ransack your city. Let's check the Greekification levels of the Greekified kingdoms. Greekification overload. Buy, said the Parthians. Buy, said the Jews. Hi, said the Parthians, taking over the entire place. Hey, said the Romans, eating the entire Mediterranean for breakfast.
Which was also a process that took several hundred years. At some point in history, the Romans, who at first still were only around Rome and maybe some territories around it, said that Rome could only survive if it was constantly expanding. And then they started constantly expanding, and a whole lot of the rulers thought they could only go down in history if they achieve some kind of growth for the empire, and that's why everyone was eager to have at least some military success or some political success in terms of land gaining. And this also will be a huge empire full of various people with various beliefs, with various cultures. And it will once again be have a strong army and will be look strong on paper, but internally it's pretty divided, and which is again one of the main reasons why it collapsed later on.
Parthians taking over the entire place. Hey, said the Romans, eating the entire Mediterranean for breakfast. Thanks for invading our homeland, said the Jews, who were starting to get tired of people invading their homeland. Hi, everything's great, said some guy who seems to be getting very popular and is then arrested and killed for being too popular, which only makes him more popular. You can make a religion out of this. Want silk? Now you can buy it from China. They just made a brand new road to the world.
And as you can see, the Silk Road goes in the Middle East, where the Suez Canal was not a thing for another 1,900 years. And so if you control this area, which will soon, at that point were the Romans, but will soon be the Muslims, then you control all the riches, more or less.
You can buy it from China. They just made a brand new road to the world. Or you can get their own water. Sick, new trade routes, said India, accidentally spreading their religion to the entire southeast. That's a good place for an epic trading kingdom. There goes Buddhism traveling up the Silk Road. I wonder if it'll reach China before it collapses again. Remember the Persian Empire? Yep, said the Persians, making a new one. Axum is getting so powerful they would like to build a long stick. Has anyone populated Madagascar yet? Let's do it together.
China's whole again, then it broke again.
Still can't cross the Sahara Desert? Try camels.
Hell yeah, now we got business.
Yeah, that's another instance for a domesticated animal, which rapidly increased the conditions and the abilities to do travel and to do trade, and will be the main reason why now the Ghana Empire here will thrive and get rich as hell. Even when you look at Africa today, you will see that nothing of all those rich and powerful nations that were once inside Africa have more or less survived. It's a very poor continent, and one can only imagine how it would have been if the Europeans didn't say at some point, okay, you are getting too strong and now you belong to us, or something like that. I know it's way more complicated than that, and it is also it's sad to see, and with all the slavery that comes in later and colonialism, I don't know if I said that correct. You are damaging Africa so much. It's still recovering today, and won't be recovered to a state where the powerhouses in Africa and the riches in Africa were some kind of comparable to those of Europe and Asia.
Still can't cross the Sahara Desert? Try camels,
Hell yeah, now we got business.
said the Ghana Empire, selling lots of gold and slaves. Hi, I live in the Roman Empire, and I was wondering...
Is loving Jesus legal yet?
Hi, I live in the Roman...
Some of you might actually know this. This symbol here, this fish, is a Christian symbol which was used before the cross, or so the cross is used because of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and I think it was as a symbol already around at that time, but as Christianity was forbidden in the Roman Empire for the reasons, well, partly for the reasons I stated earlier, those who followed Christianity wanted to have some symbol to know each other of, and they came up with this fish. I don't actually know why it was a fish and how it came to be the fish. Maybe it has something to do with the bread and the fish that Jesus did. I'm not Christian, as you might already have guessed. I'm not an expert on that, but I think it has something to do with that. If I'm wrong, you will read it here. If I'm right, then yeah, the fish is because of the fish and the bread.
And we got business,
said the Ghana Empire, selling lots of gold and slaves. Hi, I live in the Roman Empire, and I was wondering...
Is loving Jesus legal yet?
No. Actually, okay, sure, said Constantine, moving the capital way over here to be closer to his main
rival.
Don't worry.
At that point, as I said earlier, the Roman Empire was getting so big that it was very unstable internally, and where you always try to conquer new stuff, and you have also put down rebellions within your territories. You have to govern the people, and the people came to believe that this would not be possible as a whole entity with only and to do that from only one city. So they actually did not move the capital, but they built, or they named another capital. So you had two capitals to govern the Roman Empire, one for the Western Roman Empire, one for the Eastern Roman Empire, so you could respond quicker to like complaints in Egypt or in Israel, and to complaints in Spain or Italy. And later on, this would become a real split in the empire, and as we all know, the Western Roman Empire will fall because of various other reasons. But at that point, we have two capitals for the Roman Empire to help govern the whole region.
Actually, okay, sure, said Constantine, moving the capital way over here to be...
And Constantinople will later be known as Byzance, and is today known as Istanbul, and is on a very, very strategic location. And once again, the reason why Constantinople and Byzance were at some point the biggest city on the planet, and the most powerful city on the planet, is because it's here on the Bosporus. And the Bosporus is at one part connection the Mediterranean with the Black Sea, which covers these trade routes on water, and it is also connecting the Asian continent with the European continent, which, as you guessed it, is the crucial point where all the trade from Asia will go through. All the silk trade, all the spices, all the grains from Africa, all the stuff that comes from Asia or Africa will have to go to Constantinople, because the northern parts here are not that inhabited at that point, and not that passable. It is a more difficult terrain. It's a more dangerous terrain, and you have less civilization where you can be safe and rest and resupply and stuff. So everything had to go through Constantinople, because the Bosporus Strait is only a few 100 meters or a few kilometers wide, so you can see one part from the other, and you just have to use a small boat to get from A to B, and it's way more easy than like go all the way around here.
No. Actually, okay, sure, said Constantine, moving the capital way over here to be closer to his main rival. Don't worry about Rome, it won't fall.
It's the golden age of India.
There's the Gupta Empire, not Chandragupta, just Gupta. First name Chandra. The first. Guess who's in Rome?
Barbarians.
What's a barbarian? Non-Romans, said the Romans, being invaded by non-Romans. R.I.P. Roman Empire. Or actually just half of it. The other half is just fine. But it's not in Rome anymore, so let's give it a new name.
The Mayans have figured out the star.
The term Byzantine Empire was not used at that time, so don't get confused here. It was officially, I guess, still known as Eastern Roman Empire or just Roman Empire. The term Byzantine Empire was coined much later, I think even after the empire ceased to exist. I'm not sure about that. I will put it in there as well. But at that point it was not the Byzantine Empire, especially because as you can see, it's still Constantinople, it's not Byzance, and to be the Byzantine Empire you need to have Byzance first. Yeah.
It's not in Rome anymore, so let's give it a new name.
The Mayans have figured out the stars.
Oh, and here's a huge city, population everyone. The Gokturks have taken over the entire Eurasian steppe. Great job, Gokturks. How's India? Broken. How's China?
Back together.
How's those trading kingdoms?
Bigger and there's more of them.
Korea has 3 kingdoms. Japan has a kingdom, it's the Sunrise Kingdom. Deep in the Arabian desert, on the top of a mountain, the real God whispers in Muhammad's ear. So he goes down to the cube where everyone worships gods, and he tells them their gods are all fake. And everyone got so mad at him that he had to leave town and go to a different town. You can make a religion out of this, and maybe conquer the world as well. The Roman Empire is long gone, but somehow the Pope is still the Pope. Plus there's
new kingdoms all over Europe.
I wonder if there's room for Moors. Here's
something
Pope is
that
still
gets...
the Pope. Plus there's
new kingdoms all over Europe.
I wonder if there's room for more.
Something that gets overlooked a lot is how fast spreading the Islamic world actually was, because within only a few couple of years, the religion spread all across the Middle East here. It spread all across Africa. All these countries, or most of these countries, are still Islamic today, and even into Spain and Portugal. And these the Iberian Peninsula will be Islamic for around 700 years. It is not until the high Middle Ages that it gets reconquered, and we have the Spanish Inquisition then, which in fact was as harsh because because of the previous Islamic rule that was there, so they don't wanted to have any Islamic people there anymore.
But somehow the Pope is still the Pope. Plus there's
new kingdoms all over Europe.
I wonder if there's room for Moors. Here's all the wisdom. In a house. It's the Baghdad House of Wisdom.
Baghdad at that point in time was the biggest city on earth and the most important one. It had the when the Western Roman Empire fall, all the accomplishments, all the books, all the information, all the knowledge was first transported to the Eastern Roman Empire and was then collected in a huge part of Baghdad. So everything humanity knew at that point, some of which will be lost to Europe until the Renaissance, was collected here. So the wisdom and the knowledge that the Islamic world had, that especially the people in Baghdad had, was much higher than in the rest of Europe, and which is why we see in the Dark Ages, things that are doing a step back. You had accomplishments in the antique area, and now they taking a step back and have to reinvent things. For example, they have to refigure out things. They lose a lot of knowledge, which was already figured out by Greek philosophers, by Roman scientists and stuff. But it's not. That's why the term Middle Ages can and will mostly only refer to Europe, because everywhere else those knowledge was not lost. The whole cultures and the whole like they evolved were vastly different. And with the Renaissance, which means rebirth, this knowledge came back, and suddenly Europe thrived again on this past knowledge. Science thrived again and stuff.
I wonder if there's room for Moors. Here's all the wisdom. In a house. It's the Baghdad House of Wisdom, just in time for the
Islamic Golden Age.
Let's bring stuff to the coast and sell it and become the Swahili on the Swahili coast, said the Swahili on the Swahili coast. Remember this tiny space you have to go through to get from here to there? Someone owns that now.
And like with the Bosporus, and like with Sweden and Denmark, and like with France and Great Britain, and so on and so on and so on. If you have a very narrow strait of water, and which is an important trade route, and people have to go through there. If you own this, and if you own both sides, in the best case, then you can control who gets in and who gets out, and you can enforce taxes and stuff like that, which is why empires like the Srivijaya Empire here was very prosperous, which is why the Tamil kings here had a very, very good time, which is why Denmark and Sweden fought each other from Helsingborg and the town on the other side. I always forget the name of. Helsingborg is the Swedish side, and the other side is where the Hamlet Castle is. And one of the reasons why the Hamlet Castle is there, because there had to be a fortress, because Sweden and Denmark would fight over this region for a lot of time, and to control these narrow strait to the Baltic Sea. And the same is with the Strait of Gibraltar. If you control that, you control the whole Mediterranean Sea, at least in terms of who gets in and who gets out from outside, from the Atlantic, and also why the Bosporus is so important, because again, you can control who gets in and who gets out the Black Sea, which again will be the trade access route later for Russia. When Russia finally gets access to the Black Sea. At first, Russia only has access to the Baltic Sea, which again is controlled by other powers, and so trading always has been a very, very huge part. And if you control a sea strait, you pretty much control these trades, and you can raise taxes, and you can get rich on the back of this. And this is again why they fought about it, because if you only have one part, then you can't enforce your own taxes, because if you do so, the other part might say, okay, no, these are our taxes, because who owns the strait? So the best empires are those who control both sides and have no competition.
Go through to get from here to there? Someone owns that now. Want to get enlightened in the middle of nowhere? The Franks have the biggest kingdom in Europe, and the Pope is so proud that he invites the king over for Christmas. Surprise, you're the new Roman emperor, said the Pope, pretending to still be part of the Roman Empire. Then the Franks broke their kingdom into what will later be called France, and
it was three parts. It was West Francia, which became France, and it was East Francia, yes, which later became the Holy Roman Empire and is now Germany. But there was still a part in the middle because Charlemagne had three children, and he, if I remember correctly, and he split the region to all three of them. But the middle one was conquered, or the king died, or something like that, and then only two of them remained, which one became France and one became the Holy Roman Empire, which will also consist, which is why the Holy Roman Empire has something to do with Rome, is all these parts south here, even at first, I think, including Rome, which will later become the Papal State, would belong to the Holy Roman Empire, as well as huge parts on this side.
Into what will later be called France and not France. The Northerners, or just Norse if you don't have much time, are exploring. They go north, from the north to the northern north, and they find some land, two types of land, and they name them accordingly. They also invade some other places and get called many names, such as Vikings.
And yeah, the Vikings actually were the first Europeans we know for sure that reached the American continent after the settlers that already lived there. And they reached this part of modern-day Canada, I think it is, and called it Vinland, which has nothing to do with wine, but I think it means fertile land, if I remember correctly. But because they did not find any trading opportunities or conquering opportunities there, they left. They built a settlement, but I think it didn't last that long. There are actually theories that the Phoenicians would also have arrived at the Americas even before that, which would be around 1,500 years before the Vikings. But yeah, it's debated because there is no really clear evidence on that, if the Phoenicians were really there. So the Vikings were the first who reached it for sure.
Them accordingly. They also invade some other places and get called many names, such as Vikings. There's the Rus, the Kievan Rus. Are they Vikings? I don't think so, said the Kievan Rus. Okay, fair enough. The Pope is ready to make some more emperors of the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. It's actually Germany, but don't worry about it.
Yeah, as you see, it goes all the way down. I think this Rome is about here or something, and this would be Neapel. I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's a huge, not really an empire, but we talked about that in another video, and maybe I will do a video to talk about that in detail, or where someone else does that, and I will comment on it. But yeah, it is very huge, but it does include Rome, so there is some claim to say it's a Roman Empire.
The Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. It's actually Germany, but don't worry about it. New kingdoms.
Christianize all the kingdoms.
Which brand would you like? Mine's better, mine's better, mine's better. Time to conquer England, said William. It's a bird, it's a plane.
It's the Seljuk Turks,
said the Byzantine Empire, who's getting so small it almost doesn't exist anymore. We need help. They need help, so they call the Pope. Hey, Pope, can you help us get rid of the Seljuks? Maybe take back the Holy Land on the way? Come on, I know you want to take back the Holy Land. Yes, I do actually want to do that. Let's do a crusade.
And the Crusades, there were a lot of Crusades, and he will now say that most of them almost didn't fail, because pretty much all of them fail, and the Byzantine Empire actually they shot some kind of own goal there, because at the first crusade, the soldiers that arrived were mostly bad-habited drunkards who just wanted to beat some ass or kick some ass, and they actually destroyed a lot of properties on the way there, and but yeah, the Crusades were not really great for the Byzantines as well, because all the farmlands in the Byzantine empires, or a lot of them, were damaged by the Crusaders, who would only later become actual knights or soldiers with a real leadership in that sense. The first ones were just a bunch of hitters, if you want to say so.
Back the Holy Land on the way? Come on, I know you want to take back the Holy Land. Yes, I do actually want to do that. Let's do a crusade.
Crusade!
They did many crusades, some of which almost didn't fail, but at least the Italians got some sweet trade.
Yeah, and the Italians, especially Genoa and Venice, got a lot of trade around that. And Venice at some point even controlled all the Adriatic Sea coasts, because once again, or at least the entrance to the Adriatic Sea, because once again, if you control both sides, you can raise taxes, you can control who goes in and who goes out. And up until this point, the trade with Asia was very little, because as always, the Middle East, everything has to go through there. It was highly expensive to buy something there, and to even ship it then to either the Mediterranean coast or through Constantinople. And with these trade deals, the people from Venice and people from Genoa were able to pull off. It at least cheapened a bit, and and the trade could get better, and there was more now. So yeah, and that's why one of the main reasons why Venice and Genoa became very, very rich and powerful on the back of that.
Let's do a crusade.
Crusade!
They did many crusades, some of which almost didn't fail, but at least the Italians got some sweet trade deals. Goodbye, Mayans.
Hello, Toltecs!
Goodbye, Toltecs.
Hello, Mississippi!
Look at those mounds. There's the Pueblo. I always wondered how to build a town in a cliff. Guess who's here? Come here. Where? Here. And Pagan is there. Vietnam unconquered itself, Korea just became itself, and Japan is so addicted to art that the military might have to take over the government. China just invented bombs and typing. And the Mongols just invaded most of the universe. Nice going, Genghis. I bet that will last a long time. Some of the Islamic Turks were unaffected by the Mongol invasions because they were busy invading India. Is it Tonga time? I think it's Tonga time.
Actually, the Mongols were the only ones who ever successfully invaded Russia in the winter, or even I don't know if it was in the winter, but they were the only ones who really successfully invaded Russia, or modern day Russia at least. And what they weren't able to pull off was invading the Japanese mainland. You might already know this because of the Ghost of Tsushima. Tsushima is an island in between Korea and Japan, and they were able to conquer that, but they wanted to go on. They wanted to reach the Japanese mainland, and they tried twice, and both times most of the ships sank due to tornadoes, and maybe even because the Korean workers who built those boats were actually building it intentionally bad, which is a theory and not a fact. Some believe, because there are no real proofs for that. But yeah, they weren't able to invade Japan, but they were able to invade Russia.
because they were busy invading India. Is it Tonga time? I think it's Tonga time. I just found out where the Swahili gets all their gold. Look at this Chad. Means lake. There's an empire there, right in the middle of Africa. The king of Mali is so rich he's going on tour to let everyone know. Wow, that guy's rich, everyone said. The Christians are doing a great job reconquering Iberia, which will soon be called Spain and not Spain. Please remain Christian. We will check in later to see if you're still Christian when you least expect. Whoops, half of Europe just died. China's back, yay!
When we talked earlier about domestication of animals, the domestication of animals is the main reason for things like the plague and for all the other sicknesses and pandemics they were in Europe, Africa, and Asia, and not in America. In America, there were no thing like smallpox or tuberculosis or cholera or stuff like that in the Americas, because they did not domesticate animals in that scale we did, and they did not live together with the animals. All these sicknesses that killed people in masses were derived from animals, and they were, if you want, so coded to be in animals. And when they tuberculosis is like a sniffle for a cow, but when the humans got densely together in cities together with their animals and combined that with poor sanitary conditions, then suddenly those bacteria and viruses can spread to the humans. And because humans are now cows, and those organisms are coded to be in cows and don't know they are in humans, they kill the humans, or you get immune against them, get immunity, and but you still can spread it. And that's why in the American continent was so devastated when humans came around with all those sicknesses. And because one of the reasons why they didn't have it was because they had no animals in their and no cities in that sense. They had a very huge city, Tenochtitlan, and some in South America, but without all the animals. And the plague actually killed, what was it, like 1/3 of the population in Europe at that time. And once again, it came from animals, from rats in that case.
See if you're still Christian when you least expect. Whoops, half of Europe just died. China's back, yay! Hey, come here, time to share. New kingdoms here and there. Oh, look who controls all the islands. It's the Mahajapit, Majapahit, Mapajahit, Mahapajit, Mapajahit, Majapahit. Oh, Italy's really rich. Time for them to care a lot about art and the ancient classics. It's kind of like a rebirth. Here's a printer, let's make books. So you think...
Yeah, the printing machine was invented by Gutenberg in modern... And I don't know if it was modern day Germany, but in the German Empire. And for the first time in history, people were able to actually share knowledge by books, because prior to that, first thing, mostly only monks could read and write. And they were the ones, at least in the Middle Ages, they were the ones who would write a book and who would take an existing book and write a copy of it. So all the copies of books were handwritten, more or less. And this limited how fast you could spread knowledge, how fast you could spread anything. And with inventing of the printing press, you suddenly could take a book and make massive copies of it. and spread it, and which is one of the reasons why the people after the Middle Ages had at the first time a reason to even learn reading and writing, because now they could do it and had something to do it. Books were still very expensive, but this combined with the Protestant Revolution due to Martin Luther, who translated the Bible into German, because the Bible was beforehand only in Latin, and partly because the copying a book and buying a book was very expensive, only the church had a Bible, and preached and interpreted it how they pleased. With translating the Bible into German, and combine that with being able to actually print this translated version so everyone could read it, helped the people to realize that the Catholic Church was not really good, and led to several wars and revolutions until which not really last until today, because more or less Europe is secular now, but which will have a huge impact in all the European politics, and more or less the world politics as well, because Europe once ruled the whole world, kind of. So
Jahid. Majapahit. Oh, Italy's really rich. Time for them to care a lot about art and the ancient classics. It's kind of like a rebirth. Here's a printer. Let's make books. So you think you can conquer the Byzantine Empire? Yep, said the Ottoman Turks. Nice job, Ottoman Turks. Oops, you missed a spot. Don't forget to ban Europe from the Indian spice trade. What? That's...
Yeah, and that's a very, very crucial point. The as I said previously, the spice trade was extremely important for Europe for some reason. And now when you block, when you control this, you have the power to cut them off. So what the Portuguese did was search for new trade routes, which led them to go all the way around Africa, which is a very, very long and dangerous route, and which led then Columbus, who was Italian, and from Genoa, who first went to the Portuguese, asking them to finance an expedition to go west to reach India that way, and don't have to sail around all of Africa, or don't have to use this trade route here. But they already had their route, and they said it's fine with us. And then he went to Spain. Common misconception is Christopher Columbus did not want to prove that the Earth is round. He already knew that, and everyone already knew that the Earth is round. That's some knowledge that even was accessible in the Greek times, in the antiques. The whole problem was that Christopher Columbus thought that the world was smaller. The Spanish king and the Spanish queen and the Spanish scientists, they already knew how big the Earth was, because again, this is something that was already known at the antiques, and was measured in the Greek times in Egypt, I think it was. And he thought it would be way smaller, and so it would be very fast to get to India that way. No one knew that there was a whole continent in between of that. But he wanted. It was not about proving how to that the world is round, because, as I said, that was already common knowledge.
Turks. Nice job, Ottoman Turks. Oops, you missed a spot. Don't forget to ban Europe from the Indian spice trade. What? That's bullshit, said Portugal, spiceless.
Well, I guess we'll have to find another way to India.
I mean, look at how long that way
said Christopher Columbus, probably smoking crack. If the world is round, let's go this way to India. No, don't worry, we already got this, said Portugal. So Chris goes to Spain. Hey, Spain, want to hire me to find India by going around back of the world? No, please, no, please, no, please. Okay. So he sails into the ocean and discovers more ocean. and then discovers the Indies and Japan. Let's draw a line to decide who gets which half of the world. The Aztec and Inca empires are off to a great start. I wonder if they know that Europe just discovered their continent.
Yeah, and this mainly refers to the sicknesses that the Europeans would bring with them. As I said, no one in America ever experienced some kind of pandemic, and suddenly those very, very deadly pandemics came along and killed, around 90% of the Native American population. Which is very, very sad. Plus, then the conquistadores and all the other people's groups and wars that would even would kill even more people. Yeah.
Know that Europe just discovered their continent. The Habsburgs are marrying into so many royal families they might have to start marrying each other.
Yeah, the Habsburg monarchies is one. Is sometimes overshadowed by like the British Empire and such, but just imagine, if you will, that due to the Habsburg monarchies, almost the entire planet at one point was more or less ruled by House Habsburg. Why is that? Because the Habsburgs, of course, ruled over Austria, and therefore they also were the emperors for 300 years of the whole Holy Roman Empire. And they were married all over the royal houses. So they ruled Italy, they ruled Sicily, they ruled Hungary, they ruled Germany, they ruled Switzerland, they ruled France, they ruled Belgium, they ruled Spain. When you ruled Spain at that point, we just saw the line the Pope draw. Then you also, of course, rule all these Spanish territories overseas, and also all the French territories overseas. And later on, the English kings would also be German. So at that point, the whole British Empire also is more or less in German hands. So oversimplified terms, almost the whole planet at one point was under German rule, and a whole lot of the planet was even at this point under Habsburg rule, more or less, or even let's say influenced. And we don't have to forget that around this time, when Henry VIII ruled over Great Britain, he wanted an alliance with Spain, which again was Habsburg, and he wanted later on ally with Charles V of House Habsburg from Austria, and Henry VIII did not want the alliance with Spain. Henry VIII was married to a Spanish woman, I forgot her name, and therefore allied with Spain until he divorced her. And so I guess the point I was trying to make is that everyone looks at Great Britain and says, yeah, they invaded almost every country in the world. But in the shadows, the Habsburgs and Germans were lurking and laughing at the British Empire and saying, here, we have direct or indirect control over the entire planet. So,
to so many royal families, they might have to start marrying each other. Move over, Lithuania. Here comes Moscow. Ivan wants to make Russia great again. Move over, Timurids. Maybe go invade India or something. Persia just made Persia Persian again. Let's make it the other kind of Islam. The one where we thought the first guy should have been the other guy. Hey Christians, do you sin? Now you can buy your way out of hell. That's bullshit. This whole thing is bullshit. That's a scam. Fuck the church. Here's 95 reasons why, said Martin Luther in his new book, which might have accidentally started the Protestant Reformation. You know what would be magnificent, said Suleiman wearing an onion hat? What if the Ottoman Empire was really big, which it is now? What if Russia was big, said Ivan, trying not to be terrible? Portugal had a dream that they controlled the entire Indian Ocean.
The Ottoman Empire at one point even reached until to Vienna, and they were not able to conquer Vienna and were then repelled. But yeah, the Ottoman Empire was at some point one of the most powerful empires in the world once again.
It was big, said Ivan, trying not to be terrible. Portugal had a dream that they controlled the entire Indian Ocean, including the spice trade. And then that dream was real. And Spain realized that this is not India, but they pillaged it anyway. Damn, said England and France. We gotta start pillaging some stuff. Then the Dutch revolt and all the hipsters moved to Amsterdam. Damn, said Amsterdam. We gotta start pillaging some stuff. Question 1, can you get to India through North America? No, but at least there's beaver.
Beaver, funnily enough, I was told, again, I'm not Christian, but on Fridays, I think, Christians were not allowed to eat meat. So they only could eat fish. And fish is not usually everyone's favorite dish. There might be people like me who don't like fish, or who can't eat fish, or who don't have access to fish that much. So the people at that time came along with some very interesting loopholes, if you want so. So they said, if it lives in the water, it is fish. So beavers were hunted extremely just to be eaten on Fridays, because they would count as fish and not as mammals. The same goes for I don't know the English word for otter right now, but I will look it up. Otter, okay. The same goes for otters who will be found in the water, and if they are delicious, then they will be eaten. I actually don't know if they really hunted otters to eat them the way they did with the beavers, but with the beavers they did that, and I think it's stupid.
Question 2, steal the spice trade. That's not a question, but the Dutch did it anyway. Guess where all the sugar's made? In Brazil. Stolen. In the Caribbean. And it's so goddamn profitable you might forget to not do slavery. The next thing on Russia's to-do list is to get bigger. Britain and France are having a friendly discussion about who should control the entire world. More specifically, Ohio. Then it escalates into a 7-year discussion. Giving pressure.
The 7 Years' War is by some considered to be the first real world war, because it was fought on various parts of the world, and was actually not even 7 years long, but it was 9 years long, because these Ohio question dispute went on for 2 years until the actual 7 Years' War broke out. And as you see, France, Austria, Spain, Russia, and Sweden fought against Britain, Prussia, Portugal, Hanover, and Iroquois, or Iroquois, or whatever that is. And Prussia and Hanover were regions within the Holy Roman Empire, as well as Austria. So this actually was the first time that the Prussians showed themselves as the superpowers under Frederick the Great they wanted to be. And it was this time when Voltaire said that the Holy Russian Empire was not a Holy Roman or an empire. And it was also at this point when I think when this quote came along with while other countries have an army, the Prussian army has a country. They emerged from more or less nothing, and now they were one of the biggest powerhouses on the continent, because at that point was when the Russian Queen Catherine the Great was more or less installed with help from Prussia. Frederick the Great at that point was one of those who sent her to Russia and helped her become the wife of his nephew, I think it was, and become the Empress of Russia. And also House Hanover would later be, or what I think at that point they already were, the rulers of Britain. So another great powerhouse within Germany, which will be partly responsible for the fall of the Habsburgs and Austria in that sense. And yeah.
It escalates into a 7-year discussion, giving Prussia a chance to show Austria who's boss. But what about Britain and France? Did they figure out who's boss? Yes, they did. It's Britain. Guess who's broke? Also Britain. So they start taxing the hell out of America. Fuck you, says America, declaring their independence and fighting for it. And France helps them win. Now France is broke. And Britain will have to send their prisoners to a different continent. Wait, if France is broke, why do the king and queen still wear such fancy dresses? Let's overthrow the palace and cut all their heads off, said Robespierre, cutting everybody's head off until someone eventually got mad and cut his head off.
Yeah, with Robespierre it was... he pissed off his own men at some point, and he went a bit crazy during his reign, and at some point he threatened his own men, and then they just decided, okay, before he will cut our heads off, we will cut his head off. But the French Revolution would go on for 10 years in the end, with actually being one of the best examples for what a revolution actually is, because revolution means turnaround, and that usually means a 360-degree turnaround. So you end where you start, which the French Revolution more or less did. They started with an absolute monarch and ended in an absolute dictatorship, which then became an absolute monarch because Napoleon declared himself to be an emperor.
You could make a No, don't.
Yeah.
Haiti is starting to like the idea of a revolution, especially the slaves, who free themselves by killing their masters. Why didn't we think of this before? Wait, who's in charge of France now? Said Napoleon, trying to take over Europe.
And Napoleon was the one who dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, which then became the Rhine Confederation under his rule, and later the Northern German Confederation. And he wanted to invade Russia in the winter, famously, and did not succeed. He would go on to rule France again, and by the... so he was sent to exile, and then he came back and went to power again, which has to mean that he had at least some followers who actually let that happen. So they were not really angry about Napoleon like they were, for example, on the king. I don't know what the point of this is, but yeah, let's continue with the video.
Didn't we think of this before? Wait, who's in charge of France now? Said Napoleon, trying to take over Europe. Luckily, they banished him to an island.
But he came back.
Luckily, they banished him to another island. There goes Latin America, becoming independent in the Latin American Wars of Independence. Britain just figured out how to turn steam into power, so now they can make
Many different types of machines and factories with machines in them, so they can make a lot of products real fast.
The start of the Industrial Revolution, which rapidly increased living standards, productions, and stuff. There were you had machines beforehand, and you had even steam machines. So the first known of steam machine was actually invented in Egypt at around I don't know, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. But there were no real use for that. Now James Watt came along and invented a whole system based around on the steam machine, which made it accessible and usable for multi-purpose, especially for motors, which would then become to power whole machines, because machines were a thing before, like, but they needed man or horsepower or some kind of living force, if you will, so to be powered, and they were very limited. Now with motors, with steam machines, with all these inventions, those same machines or those same principles could be automated, and that was some would say the greatest, the start of the greatest phase in human history. Some would say start of the worst phase in human history, because with all these industrialization, we also started rapidly to decrease the quality of air and of the conditions for poor people, and we used a lot of resources out of a sudden, faster than they could grow back, for example, faster than even they were accessible or findable. And now we're here and still debating over if we should maybe stop with all the environmental damage we did in the last only around 200 years.
Them so they can make a lot of products real fast.
Then they invent some trains and conquer India and maybe put some trains there. Hey, China, said Britain, buy stuff from us. Nah, dude, we already got everything, says China. So Britain tried to get them addicted to opium, which worked, actually. But then China made it illegal and dumped it all into the sea. So Britain threw a hissy fit and made them open up 5 cities and give them an island. Britain and Russia are playing a game where they try to stop each other from conquering Afghanistan. Also, the
Sultan of Oman lives in Zanzibar now.
That's just where he lives. India just had a revolution, and they would like to govern themselves now. Nope, said Britain, governing them even harder than before.
Technology is about to go crazy.
The United States finally figured out whether slavery is good or bad.
The whole slavery thing. So I won't comment that much on this, because it's American history is far away from my expertise and my of that what's relevant to me as a European. But the whole Civil War, which was one of the first times where modern warfare, as we would see it again in World War I, was used, not in terms of tanks or huge artilleries, but in terms of more or less trench warfare, because it was the American Civil War where the people more or less discovered that with the modern rifles you can just look for some cover and shoot from there on the incoming troops, and could kill them more or less all before they could even reach you and before they could flank you. And even if they flank you, even if they do like something like a cavalry charge, when you are behind that protection, you in that cover, you can still more or less gun them down, which changed a lot of tactical decisions later on, and was one of the reasons for trench warfare in First World War, because at that point the people knew we just need some kind of cover, and then we might have a chance to repel every attack, which with machine guns is even easier to do. And yes, slavery already was on the fall, at the beginning of the century, if I remember correctly. But then cotton was discovered, or it was discovered that cotton would grow there, or something like that. The huge cotton industry came along, and with that cotton industry, the demand of slavery suddenly raised high up. And while in the north, in the years before the Civil War, slavery was just seen as not necessary because the northern states were more industrialized, while the southern states were more rural and agricultural, with depending on slaves to do the work for a reasonable price, especially. So they just split more or less in that terms. It was for at that point for the North not an issue of human rights that would only become an issue later, and even until the 1960s, 1970s, and even today, it is still a question of there are still debates, there is still racism, there's still it's very complicated, and I think I shouldn't go too deep into that right now, because as I said, it's not very my expertise. But what I wanted to say is in how the slaves were treated was very, very bad. There was slavery in Europe, like in the Roman empires, but those slaves were usually slightly better treated, and I think they were at least recognized as human beings. And in other parts of the world, this was kind of similar. Like I said, I'm not really sure, but like in Russia, you had the serfs who were more or less like slaves, and had more or less no rights, but at least they were seen as human beings, whereas the slaves in Africa were not even, in America, were not even seen as human beings. They were property and nothing else. They actually were racial studies who that underlined this claim that African slaves are not human. They are more apes, if you want to sort of speak. So yeah, but slavery was abandoned in Europe entirely at that point, I think. I'm not sure if how the situation in Russia was, and if you can count these really as slaves, these serfs. But at least in Western Europe, slavery was abandoned everywhere, especially in Great Britain. So when Abraham Lincoln made the war about slavery, which it was not in particular at the beginning, he made every attempt of getting allies for the Confederates more or less impossible, and that's why one of the reasons why in the end the North would win the war, because when the South has no allies, but the North could gather allies and has more men and has more advanced technologies, then you might have your tiny military successes like they were in Washington at some point, or on the borders of Washington, but you can't sustain it for long.
Whether slavery is good or bad, it's bad, they decided. And then they continued manifesting their destiny, which is to kill the rest of the natives and take their land and maybe kick out the Mexicans too. I know, let's rape Africa, said Europe, scrambling to see who could...
But the Mexican-American War was before the Civil War, wasn't it? So the Mexican territory on modern day US was already gone, wasn't it? I mean, I'm not sure, but
take their land and maybe kick out the Mexicans too. I know, let's rape Africa, said Europe, scrambling to see who could rape it the fastest. They never got Ethiopia.
Until the Italians came around in World War II and conquered Ethiopia. So there's that.
Britain and France are still hungry. They never got Thailand. The United States ran out of destiny to manifest, so they're looking for more.
Hawaii, Cuba.
Wait, Spain controls Cuba. Well, blame something on them and go to war. What should we blame on Spain? Let's blame the Maine on Spain. So they blame the Maine on Spain. Now we're in business. To celebrate, they kick Panama out of Panama and make a canal, connecting the two oceans. Britain just found oil in the Middle East. It makes cars go. China is so tired of being bossed around that they delete their old government and make a new, stronger government, which is accidentally weaker and controlled by a guy from the previous government. Europe hasn't had a war since the last war, so they start World War I. Look at those guns. It's good.
Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Japan, United States. Yeah, but main fighting powers were Britain with the whole British Empire. So fighters from India, Canada, Australia, and so on. France and Russia. Italy joined the war in 1915 on the side of the Entente, and they had just some smaller trench warfare in the Alps, which was so devastating and hard to do that never again would there be an trench warfare in mountainous regions, because it's stupid. Japan, I don't know if they joined directly, but they only had these German colonies in Asia. They did not interfere on the European continent, and the United States came in 1917, 1916, 1917, and would not play a huge role in the war, but they were the ones coming around with trench guns or shotguns. And yeah, Austria-Hungary, Germany, Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria, more or less, again with colonies, and yeah, that's nice thingies here. I don't know if hand grenades and flamethrowers were a thing in the First World War, actually, but I could be wrong. I'm not.
Had a war since the last war, so they start World War I. Look at those guns. It's going to be a great war. So great we won't need a second one. After it's over, they blame Germany. Russia went on strike and the workers overthrew the government. Now everyone's paycheck is the same.
Communism in the Soviet Union.
The Arabs revolt and Britain helps. Now the Ottoman Empire's gone, so we can give the
Jewish people a place to live.
Hopefully the Arabs won't mind. Let's cut the cake, said Sykes and Picot, carving up the remains of the not-so-Ottoman-anymore empire.
Except Turkey. Turkey makes a brand new Turkey.
And then the Saudis conquer Arabia. It just seemed like the right thing to do. Hello? Yes, it's the 1920s calling. Let's get in the car and drive to a party and listen to jazz on the radio and go to the movies. The economy's great and it'll probably be great forever. Just kidding. Germany's back featuring Hitler, the angry mustache model, and he's mad at the Jews for existing. Japan is finally conquering the East, and they're so excited they rape Nanking way too hard. They should probably just deny it. Hitler's out of control, so the international community tackles him and tries to explain why killing all the Jews is a bad idea.
That Hitler was killing all the Jews was not really something they knew at first. The main goal of the Allies was to... Germany did expand aggressively and rapidly, and did wage war against the whole continent, and that's why the Allies wanted to reconquer France. They wanted to reconquer the whole Soviet regions that the Germans had overrun with the Operation Barbarossa. And the concentration camps and the whole Holocaust was not really known about by the Allies, but when they slowly came along, those camps, when conquering all the territories, especially in Poland, when the Soviets came along and they found all these camps and they found all these Jews in them, in conditions. It's even hard to imagine how hard it had to be. They were like all just bones and skin, and all these piles of dead bodies and stuff. That's when they really found out what Germany or the Nazis were actually doing. So, but the main reason was to squeeze Germany back into its own borders and stop this rapid expansion which Germany was doing in the years before.
Hitler's out of control, so the international community tackles him and tries to explain why killing all the Jews is a bad idea, but he kills himself before they could explain it to him.
That's World War II.
Bonus round, Pacific Showdown, United States versus Japan. Fight! Finish him. Let's unite all the nations and have some
World peace.
Seems legit. Hi, I'm Gandhi, and if Britain doesn't get the hell out of India, I'm going to starve myself in public. Wow, that worked. Bonus, now there's Pakistan. Actually, 2 Pakistans. One of them could be Bangladesh later. The Jews and the Arabs finally figured out which one of them should live in the Holy Land. Me, they both said at the same time. Let's divide up the land so everyone's happy.
Sight, they both get angrier.
Look out, China, there's a...
And I really won't comment on that because it's a very hot topic.
New China in China. What's on the menu? Communism. No thanks, said the other China, escaping to an island. I wonder which one is the real China. There's the Korean War, Korea versus Korea. Nobody wins, then it's on pause forever. Let's meet the sponsors. Oh, it's the 2 global superpowers. They're having a friendly debate over which economic system is good and which one is an evil virus of Satan. And they both have atom bombs. Fight! Wait, no, that would be the end of the world. Let's just keep it cool and spy on each other instead. And make sure we have enough atom bombs.
Yeah. The Soviet Union and the US, they did not want to fight each other because everyone knew this would mean world ending. But what they could do is sponsor fights of others. The US was really trying to prevent the spread of communism, and therefore they would go ahead and like to South Korea, like to South Vietnam, and many other countries, and support them in their efforts to fight a communist revolution or a communist regime or a communist-backed invading force or something. And so they just, with just sponsoring them, and the Soviets did the same on their end, and they sponsored the because the Soviets wanted to spread the communism, and they financed like North Korea and encouraged them to conquer South Korea. But as there is no direct confrontation between Soviets and Americans, they would more or less prevent all-out war, and which would mean fallout war. So that's that, and all those countries had to suffer on the back of the Soviet Union and the US, because both sides thought that they are themselves the people who are the ones who are in the right, but in the end, more or less no one was in the right on that regards, and yeah. But atomic warfare is not good. And there was even a point where General MacArthur wanted to use nukes on China during the Korean War, which luckily did not happen, and he was fired for this. But yeah.
The world. Let's just keep it cool and spy on each other instead. And make sure we have enough atom bombs. I'll race you to space. Now let's make some more countries fight themselves.
Yeah, and never forget, the Soviets had the first living the first satellite in space. I think they had the first living being in the space, the first human in space. All that the Americans did was having the first one on the moon. But on my book, Space Race was won by the Soviets.
Have enough atom bombs. I'll race you to space. Now let's make some more countries fight themselves. Europe is tired of pillaging other continents, and the continents they were pillaging are tired of being pillaged. So here's a new map with new countries. Now you can't tell who they're being pillaged by. The United States finally decided whether racism is good or bad. They decided it's bad, and the world agrees. South Africa might need another minute to think about it. Let's check the world population. Whoa. Okay. Technology's better too, that might keep happening. The Soviet Union decides to relax a little and accidentally falls apart. Europe.
About the world population. Around 1900, so only 120 years ago, the world population was around, I think, 2.5 billion or somewhere around 2 to 2.5 billion, I think it was. And now we're between 7 and 8 billion. So within only 100 years, the population tripled, at least. And that's mostly due to industrialization and better living conditions. People get older, people get healthier in many ways. And but imagine if this trend would continue like that, so in 100 years it will triple again, then in 100 years we would have like 21 billion people on the planet, which would be impossible, I think, because that many people couldn't be supported.
Another minute to think about it. Let's check the world population. Whoa. Okay. Technology's better too, that might keep happening. The Soviet Union decides to relax a little and accidentally falls apart. Europe makes a union, so now they can all use the same money, except Britain because they don't feel like it.
And now they're off. And it's not only except Britain, because in Denmark and Sweden, they also use still their own currency, which but they are able to join the Eurozone if they meet the requirements to do so. So if I remember correctly, they want to use the euro, but are not able to do so right now. And so they still use crowns. And right now, all of most of these all here are in the EU or in the process of joining the EU, like Poland is in the EU, Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic is in the EU, and so on and so on.
Let's check the mail. Surprise, it's on the computer. Whoops, someone just attacked America. I bet they'll remember that. Phone call. Surprise, it's in your pocket.
When 9/11 happened, it happened around 9 to 10 a.m. Local time in New York, which is around 3 p.m. My time at that point. And I remember it was a school day. I went home from school and I was in the shopping center on the video game station and played a bit, and then went home. And when I was home at like 4 or 5 p.m., I turned on the radio, and suddenly I was shocked by the news, which were going on for a long time. At that point, the first tower was already collapsed. I don't know if the second tower was already collapsed. And then the rest of the day, I listened to the radio and the live broadcast, because I did not have a TV. So I saw of all of this first when I at the next day when I read the news articles, and I was really shocked, because this was I was like 13 years old, or 12 to 13 years old, and this was the first time I ever came into contact with such thing happening, with terrorism happening. This was the first time ever I came into contact with terrorism, and yeah, it was crazy. So I remember as well.
Makes a union, so now they can all use the same money, except Britain because they don't feel like it. Let's check the mail. Surprise, it's on the computer. Whoops, someone just attacked America. I bet they'll remember that. Phone call. Surprise, it's in your pocket. Want to learn everything? Surprise, it's on the computer. Now your phone's a computer, which is in your pocket. Whoops, the economy just crashed. Don't worry, the big banks won't fail because they're not supposed to. Surprise, flying robots. With bombs. Want to print a brain? Some people have no friends. Some people have no food. The globe is warming.
And the ocean is full of plastic.
Let's save the planet, said everybody, not knowing how. Let's invent a thing inventor, said the thing inventor after being invented by a thing inventor. That's pretty cool. By the way, where the hell are we?
Yeah, thank you, Billy. Billy or Billy? Bill. Yeah, great video. I talked a lot of bullshit. I might cut out a lot of it in the editing process. I also a little bit tired, so maybe I'm even talking slower than usual. But nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, if you want to learn about history, learn about how we came to be, how we are today, then absolutely go ahead, check this video out, and then do deeper digging into the topics you find exciting. And as always, the link to the video will be in the description. And yeah, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you don't like the video, then dislike and don't subscribe. And please tell me in the comments what you think of the format, what you think of the video. And until next time, my name is Ossi, and have a nice evening. Bye bye.